a WikiVidi Documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. 2011 Norway attacks. The 2011 Norway attacks, referred to in Norway as the 22nd of July, the date of the events, were two sequential lone wolf terrorist attacks by Anders Behring Breivik against the government, the civilian population, and a workers' youth league-run summer camp. The attacks claimed a total of 77 lives. The first attack was a car bomb explosion in Oslo within Regjeringskvartalet, the executive government quarter of Norway, at 15:25 and 22 seconds. The bomb was made from a mixture of fertiliser and fuel oil and placed in the back of a van. The van was placed next to the tower block housing the office of Prime Minister Jens Stoltenberg. The explosion killed 8 people and injured at least 209 people, 12 of them seriously. The second attack occurred less than 2 hours later at a summer camp on the island of Utøya in Tyrifjorden, Buskerud. The camp was organized by the AUF, the youth division of the ruling Norwegian Labour Party. Breivik, dressed in a homemade police uniform and showing false identification, took a ferry to the island and opened fire at the participants, killing 68 of them outright, and injuring at least 110 people, 55 of them seriously. The 69th victim died in a hospital 2 days after the massacre. Among the dead were friends of Prime Minister Jens Stoltenberg, and the stepbrother of Norway's Crown Princess Mette-Marit. It was the deadliest attack in Norway since World War II. And a survey found that 1 in 4 Norwegians knew someone affected by the attacks. The European Union, NATO and several countries around the world expressed their support for Norway and condemned the attacks. On the 13th of August 2012, Norway's Prime Minister received the Gjørv report, which concluded that Norway's police could have prevented the bombing of central Oslo and caught the gunman faster at Utøya, and that more security and emergency measures to prevent further attacks and mitigate adverse effects should have been implemented on the 22nd of July. The Norwegian police arrested Anders Behring Breivik, a 32-year-old Norwegian right-wing extremist, on Utøya Island and charged him with both attacks. The trial against him took place between 16 April and the 22nd of June 2012 in Oslo District Court, where Breivik admitted to having carried out the actions he was accused of, but denied criminal guilt and claimed the defense of necessity. On the 24th of August 2012, Breivik was convicted as charged and sentenced to 21 years of preventive detention in prison, at the expiration of which the sentence can be extended indefinitely, in 5-year increments, as long as the prisoner is deemed a threat to society. Preparation for the attacks. Breivik claims to have begun the planning of the terrorist acts in 2002, at the age of 23. He had participated for years in debates on internet forums and spoken against Islam and immigration. He was preparing for the attacks from at least as early as 2009, though he concealed his violent intentions. Failed attempt to buy weapons in Prague. Breivik spent 6 days in Prague in late August and early September 2010. Following his internet inquiry, Breivik noted that Prague is known for maybe being the most important transit site point for illicit drugs and weapons in Europe. Despite the fact that Prague has one of the lowest crime rates among European capitals, Breivik expressed reservations about his personal safety, writing that he believed Prague to be a dangerous place with many brutal and cynical criminals. He hollowed out the rear seats of his high-end Diatos in order to have enough space for the firearms he hoped to buy. After 2 days, he got a prospectus for a mineral extraction business printed, which was supposed to give him an alibi in case someone suspected him of preparing a terrorist attack. He wanted to buy an AK-47 type rifle, a Glock pistol, hand grenades and a rocket-propelled grenade, stating that getting the latter two would be a bonus. Breivik had several fake police badges printed to wear with a police uniform, which he had acquired illegally on the internet, and which he later wore during the attack. contrary to his expectations. He was unable to get any firearms in the Czech Republic, commenting that it was the first major setback in his operation. In the end, he concluded that Prague was far from an ideal city to buy guns. Nothing like what the BBC reported, and that he had felt safer in Prague than in Oslo. Arming in Norway and through the internet. Originally, Breivik intended to try to obtain weapons in Germany or Serbia if his mission in Prague failed. The Czech disappointment led him to procure his weapons through legal channels. He decided to obtain a semi-automatic rifle and a Glock pistol legally in Norway, noting that he had a clean criminal record, hunting license, and 2 guns already for 7 years. And that obtaining the guns legally should therefore not be a problem. Upon returning to Norway, Breivik obtained a legal permit for a .223 caliber Ruger Mini 14 semi-automatic carbine, ostensibly for the purpose of hunting deer. He bought it in late 2010 for €1,400. He wanted to purchase a 7.62x39mm Ruger Mini 30 semi-automatic carbine, but decided for unknown reasons to buy the Mini 14. Getting a permit for the pistol proved more difficult, as he had to demonstrate regular attendance at a sport shooting club. He also bought 10 30-round magazines for the rifle from a United States supplier, and 6 magazines for the pistol in Norway. From November 2010 to January 2011 he went through 15 training sessions at the Oslo Pistol Club, and by mid-January his application to purchase a Glock pistol was approved. Breivik claimed in his manifesto that he bought 300 grams of sodium nitrate from a Polish shop in December 2010, in order to make a bomb fuse. In March 2011, he legally bought 100 kilograms of chemicals from a small internet-based Wrocław company. The Polish ABW interviewed the company owner on the 24th of July 2011. Breivik's Polish purchases initially led to his being placed on the watch list of the Norwegian intelligence, which did not act, because they did not believe his actions were relevant to their terror concerns. He had also planned a last religious service before the attack. Breivik Geofarm. On the 18th of May 2009 Behring Breivik created a sole proprietorship called Breivik Geofarm, a company established under the fictitious purpose of cultivating vegetables, melons, roots and tubers. The real purpose was to gain access to chemicals and materials, especially fertilizer that could be used for the production of explosives without arousing suspicion. The place of business was given as Amot in Hedmark. On the 4th of May 2011, Breivik purchased 6 tons of fertilizer through Geofarm at Felleskjøpet, 3 tons of ammonium nitrate and 3 tons of calcium ammonium nitrate, according to neighbors. All the fertilizer was stored in his barn. After conducting a reconstruction of the bomb with equivalent amount of fertilizer on the farm in Amot, police and bomb experts concluded that the bomb had been 950 kilograms, about the same size as the one used in the 2002 Bali bombings. Afterwards there was significant debate in Norway about how an amateur could acquire such substantial amounts of fertilizer and manufacture and place such a lethal weapon in the middle of Regjeringskvartalet all by himself. The conclusion by Felleskjøpet was that there is no legislation to keep agricultural businesses from buying as much fertilizer as they like, and that there was nothing suspicious about Breivik's purchase. This was confirmed by the director of the Norwegian Police Security Service, Janne Christiansen, who stated, "Not even the Stasi could have prevented this attack." The company listed at least 2 Swedish employees at the social networking site Facebook, but it is uncertain whether these people existed. In April 2011 he reported moving from Oslo to Valstua farm in the municipality of Amot, about 9 kilometers south of the community centre Rena, on the east side of Glomma. His agricultural company was run from the farm and gave him access to ingredients for explosives. His 950 kilograms car bomb exploded in central Oslo on the 22nd of July 2011 where it killed 8 people. He had between 1,000 and of additional material that was left on the farm and could be used for construction of a second bomb. Weapons training. Beside visiting firing ranges and countries with relaxed gun laws to sharpen his skill, Breivik's manifesto says that he made use of the video game Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 as a training aid while using World of Warcraft as a cover for his extended period of isolation. He also said that he honed his shooting skills using an in-game holographic sight similar to the one he used during the attacks. Oslo bombing. On the 22nd of July 2011 at 15:25 and 22 seconds, a bomb detonated in Regjeringskvartalet, central Oslo. The bomb was placed in a white Volkswagen Crafter and parked in front of the H block, housing the office of the Prime Minister, Ministry of Justice and the Police, and several other governmental buildings, such as the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Education and Research and the Supreme Court of Norway. The crafter was registered by surveillance cameras as entering Grubbegata from Grensen at 15:13 and 23 seconds. The van stopped at 15:13 and 43 seconds, 200 meters before the H block. It stood still with the hazard warning lamps on for 1 minute and 54 seconds. The driver then drove the last 200 meters and parked the van in front of the main entrance of the main government building. The van was parked at 15:16 and 30 seconds. The front door of the van opened 16 seconds later, and after another 16 seconds the driver stepped out of the van. He stood outside the van for 7 seconds before he quickly walked away towards Hammersborg Torg, where he had another car parked. The driver was dressed like a police officer and had a gun in his hand. A police helmet with a face shield was covering his face. Breivik was not positively identified. The explosion started fires in the H block and R4, and the shockwave blew out the windows on all floors as well as in the VG house and other buildings on the other side of the square. The streets in the area were filled with glass and debris. A cloud of white smoke was reported as a fire continued to burn at the Department of Oil and Energy. The blast was heard at least 7 kilometers away. At 15:26 the police received the first message about the explosion, and at 15:28 the first police patrol reported arriving at the scene. At the same time, news agency NTB was told that the Prime Minister was unhurt and safe. A witness called police at 15:34 to report a person in a police uniform holding a pistol in his hand, entering an unmarked vehicle. Information, including the vehicle's license plate number and description of the suspect, was written on a yellow note and hand-delivered to the Police Operations Central, where it lay for 20 minutes before the witness was phoned back. The license plate number was not transmitted on the police radio until 2 hours later. Following the explosion, police cleared the area and searched for any additional explosive devices through media outlets. Police urged citizens to evacuate central Oslo. Police later announced that the bomb was composed of a mixture of fertilizer and fuel oil, similar to that used in the Oklahoma City bombing. The blast was caught on many security cameras. Impact on transportation. Immediately after the explosion, the area surrounding the damaged buildings was cordoned off and evacuated. People were asked to remain calm and leave the city center if possible, but there was no general evacuation. The Oslo Metro remained operational, and most of the Oslo tram network was also running, although sporadically, except for the line through Grensen. Buses also continued to run, although at least one articulated bus on the number 37 line, which stops outside the Ministry of Finance, was commandeered to evacuate the walking wounded. An email communication with the BBC from a traveller indicated that police were conducting searches in suspicious cars on the road to Oslo Airport, Gardermoen, which remained open. The Gardermoen line between Lillestrøm and Oslo Airport was shut down after a suspicious package was found close to the tracks. The same happened at the offices of TV2, which were evacuated after a suspicious package was found outside the building. Attack. Approximately 1.5 hours after the Oslo explosion, Breivik, dressed in a police uniform and presenting himself as Martin Nilsson, from the Oslo Police Department, boarded the ferry at Utøya in Tyrifjorden, a lake some 40 kilometers northwest of Oslo, to the island of Utøya, the location of the Norwegian Labour Party's youth camp. The camp is organized there every summer and was attended by approximately 600 teenagers. When Breivik arrived on the island, he presented himself as a police officer who had come over for a routine check following the bombing in Oslo. He was met by Monica Bosse, the camp leader and island hostess. Bosse probably became suspicious and contacted Trond Berntsen, the security officer on the island, before Breivik killed them both. He then signaled and asked people to gather around him before pulling weapons and ammunition from a bag and firing indiscriminately, killing and wounding numerous people. He first shot people on the island and later started shooting at people who were trying to escape by swimming across the lake. Survivors on the island described a scene of terror. Survivor Dana Barzingi, then 21, described how several victims wounded by Breivik pretended to be dead, but he came back and shot them again. He spared an 11-year-old boy who had lost his father during the shooting and stood up against him and said he was too young to die, as well as a 22-year-old man who begged for his life. Some witnesses hid in undergrowth and lavatories, communicating by text message to avoid giving their positions. The mass shooting lasted for around an hour and a half, ending when a police special task force arrived and Breivik surrendered. Despite having ammunition left, at 1835, the shooter used hollow point or frangible bullets which increased tissue damage. Breivik repeatedly shouted that "You are going to die today, Marxists." Bosse's husband and one of her daughters, who were also present, survived. The youngest victim, New Zealand-born Sheridan Svebakbon of Drammen, was 14 years old. 16-year-old Andrina Bakin Espeland of Sarpsborg was the last victim. Nearly 1 hour after the shooting began, residents in a flotilla of motorboats and fishing dinghies sailed out to rescue the survivors, who were pulled out shivering and bleeding from the water, and picked up from hiding places in the bushes and behind rocks around the island's shoreline. Some survived by pretending to be dead. Several campers, especially those who knew the island well, swam to the island's rocky west side and hid in the caves which are only accessible from the water. Others were able to hide away on the secluded Kurleisjen. 47 of the campers sought refuge in Skollestua together with personnel from the Norwegian People's Aid. Although Breivik fired 2 bullets through the door, he did not get through the locked door, and the people inside this building survived. The teenagers said that they had decided that it was too difficult to stop the gunmen. They discovered a cave-like opening in a rock where they hid 23 children from Breivik. Zemayev, who kept guard outside, also dragged 3 youngsters from the lake who were close to drowning. Former Prime Minister Gro Harlem Brundtland, whom Breivik said he hated and, in a pun on the epithet landsmoderen, referred to in his writings as landsmorderen, had been on the island earlier in the day to give a speech to the camp. After the attack, Breivik stated that he originally wanted to target her specifically, but, because of delays related to the renovation of Oslo Central Railway Station, he arrived after she had already left. Rescue and emergency response. The first shot was fired at 17:22. The emergency medical services were informed about the shooting 2 minutes later. 1 minute after the police in Oslo were informed. They immediately tried to reach Utøya as quickly as possible, but did not have a helicopter that could take them straight to the island. By 17:30, the anti-terror police in Oslo were on the way to Utøya by automobile. One of the first to arrive on the scene was Marcel Gleff, a German resident of Ski staying at Utøya camping on the mainland. Recognizing gunshots, he piloted his boat to the island, and began throwing life jackets to young people in the water, rescuing as many as he could in 4 or 5 trips, after which the police asked him to stop. The Daily Telegraph credited him with saving up to 30 lives. Another 40 were saved by Hege Dallen and Tiril Hansen, a married couple on vacation in the area. Dallen was helping from land while Hansen and a neighbor camper made several trips to rescue people in the water. Several dozen more were rescued by Kasper Ilaug, who made 3 trips to the island. Ilaug, a local resident, received a telephone call that something terrible was happening on Utøya and requesting help. He initially thought the call was a prank, but acted anyway. Altogether, some 150 who swam away from the island were pulled out of the lake by campers on the opposite shore. The anti-terror police reached the meeting point at 1809, but had to wait a few minutes for a boat to take them across. They reached Utøya at 1825, when confronted by the heavily armed police on the island. The gunmen initially hesitated for a few seconds. When an officer yelled, "Surrender or be shot," he laid down his weapons. Anders Breivik called the 112 emergency phone number at least twice to surrender, at 1801 and 1826, and continued killing people in between. The police say Breivik hung up both times. They tried to call him back, but did not succeed. When the police arrived at the scene, they were met by survivors begging the officers to throw away their weapons, as they were afraid that the men in uniforms would again open fire on them. During the attack, 69 people were killed, and of the 517 survivors, 66 were wounded. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries.